But the guy you got to look at, the one that I believe in and is probably the most underrated player in all of college football, DJ Giddens. The guy wants no publicity, came from Junction City, went over and played. Talk about Avery Johnson all you want is what he thinks. Just let me play.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome to another 3 Mile Pod. I'm Cole Manbeck. No John or DY today, but I've got a great substitute in their place as I'm joined by Stan Weber, longtime color analyst for K-State football and basketball on the K-State Sports Network. Stan going into year 38, he was telling me off air as the color commentator on the K-State Sports Network. And we are here to talk K-State football today as we approach the end of July, which is the final month of 2024, where we won't have football played. Thank goodness. That also means you've got just a little more than a month to go get stocked up with some of the Holiday Distillery's Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond bourbon to have at your tailgate this fall or in your bar when you're watching or listening to the Wildcats from your home. Great K-Staters over at Holiday Distillery who support us on 3 Maw. Stan, appreciate you joining us. Hope the summer's gone well for you. I'm sure you're eager to get to football season just like myself. But before we look ahead to the 2024 season, let's take a few minutes just to look back on 2023 and how we got to where we're at today. And I've heard you say before, don't take for granted winning 9 games, 8 games, 10 games. K-State went 9-4 last year. All 4 losses decided by 1 possession, including 2 coming down to the final play of the game at Missouri and at Texas. How would you assess or break down the 2023 season?
You brought up a couple of good points right there. Thanks for having me, first of all. And I'm very glad we're getting to the point where football gets to start. So no doubt about that. When you look back on last season, you cannot help but be positive about what happened with a 9-win season. Chris Kleiman, again, continues to show the consistency that he has at K-State. He's a veteran coach now. All of these are his players, remember. And K-State sits here as we get ready for the 2024 season as the only team in the Big 12 that's won 8 or more games in 3 straight seasons. So I love the consistency. Finishing it off with a bowl win was so important because that Iowa State game was such a disappointment. It just, how do you have a game where K-State ran almost all the plays? They never snapped the ball from scrimmage more in a game in K-State football history than they did against Iowa State, and yet they lost the game because it seemed like the Cyclones went invisible in the snow with their white uniforms and ran down the field. So winning the game against North Carolina State, a ranked team in a bowl game, was so important. Now, obviously, Avery Johnson was able to start a ball game. There's so many reasons why that was important. But when you encapsulate the whole season, including Will Howard, Ben Sennett, and the whole team, it was very important to have that win after the Iowa State loss because last year was a very positive year in so many ways. But you could also sit and wish for more because you made the point about the 4 losses. Winning close games, usually I define those games in my stats that I keep for a long period of time of games decided by 7 points or less. Now with the 2-point conversion becoming such a big part of pro and college football, I guess we can stretch it to 8 points. And when you do that, you've got a 1-4 record in the 2023 team in those games. So even though there's so many positives to come, there definitely is a taste in your mouth of what could have happened if you would have scored against Texas or if you won your share, more than your fair share of those close games. And that's how you're going to define the season when you look at 2024. Because, Cole, we're getting to a whole new environment. I mean, there's no Oklahoma. There's no Texas. There's so many new teams. Can you believe Arizona and Arizona State are going to be in Manhattan? These things are crazy to think about. It's like an NFL schedule. The Cats could win every single game without blinking an eye this year, or you could end up sitting with 3 or 4 losses if you lose those close games. So what I remember about last year that you really want to focus in on as you get ready for the season this year is winning those close games. That 1-4 record in games decided by 8 points or less kept us from having an even greater season in 2023.
Stan, Kelly Ford, who's an advanced analyst, has this advanced statistical models. We've had him on the show before. He has a what-if ranking, and it essentially is if you flip the scores of all your one-loss games, where would you have finished in his national power rankings? K-State finished number 1. If you flip all of those one-score games, it would have finished the best in the country. And look, in 2022, as you know, K-State won a lot of those close games, and that was the difference. They win the Big 12 championship, that Iowa State game in Ames. They win by 1. They beat OU by 7. They won a lot of those close games, the overtime win against TCU in the Big 12 championship. I want to go back to something you brought up on the bowl game. Just the significance of that. Like, what do you take away from the victory in that Pop-Tarts Bowl over a top 25 ranked NC State team, and just the value of having that month of December to get Avery Johnson some reps, and then also Connor Riley some reps, essentially, as what eventually becomes the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, those are all great predictors for what the development in spring ball into the season, summer, and now ready for season of 2024. Some people talk about bowl games in that kind of mentality all the time, Cole. Oh, we're looking to next year. I don't necessarily think that's the case at all. I think it's the finalization of the previous season. But this year took on a new spin. With the transfer portal working the way it is, the scheduling messed up as it is. Can you imagine the NFL playoffs saying, well, we're starting the NFL playoffs, but the free agents can now move to other teams next year or play their playoff games. What are they going to do? Well, they got to take care of their career and they move on. So, not to have Ben Sennett, Will Howard out there playing in the games, and to others, just you shake your head and go, what the heck's going on? So I do, in a first sense, talk about it being the 2023 season, because I always respect the season, especially when you think about those seniors like Cooper Beebe. I mean, I cannot pat him on the back or give him a virtual hug more than saying, I'm going to play. And I'm going to be a great player and probably a starting NFL guy next year, but I'm going to play right here for my K-State Wildcats. So the ending of the season, winning bowl games are a big deal. Being ranked teams in bowl games are a big deal. They never won't be in that extra game, winning 9 instead of 8. As you know, Cole, means a lot to me. But in this case, I mentioned it slightly, that Iowa State home loss was such a gut punch and a surprise, and it almost, did it really happen? I mean, we don't have games filled with snow 6 inches deep all over the field. So what was going on out there? And to see the game that unique and so unusual, nothing like the rest of the year, you couldn't lose that game and then go fight and lose a bowl game as well and feel nearly as good as you should about yourself. So I thought that bowl game was big for this football team, and I think getting used to winning bowl games is a big part of a step that you want to have in a program. So we're going to finish every year off in a big fashion. Remember winning the Big 12 championship. That was an extra game in 2022. And I like the point you made, because you really followed up on what I was talking about. 1-4 in 2023. It was the opposite in 2022, where they won the close games. So we're going to talk about 2024. Hey, how are you going to do in those close games? Could define which season it's most like. Are you going to be a Big 12 champion or have a few disappointments? Going into this game, though, it was a prediction of the future, because Colin Klein moved on, and he's the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M. So now Connor Riley has a whole new role. That was very important for him during the month to establish how he's going to do things, because he believes in Colin Klein and Chris Kleiman and K-State football. He's been around all the way to the North Dakota State days, right? So we're not talking about big revamping, but still his role is going to change. How was he going to handle that? He had a lot of decisions. He's been a guy on the field. Was he going to stay on the field and call plays, or was he going to go up to the box? He decided to go up to the box. How important is that he's experienced that going into 2024? He's convicted with how it works and where he can be. He also had to make the choice. Am I going to stay as the offensive line coach? Or, because I'm the play caller, do I seep over to a different position? Do I coach tight ends, running backs? We've seen that before with Courtney Messingham. Do you go and say, maybe I need to be the quarterback coach, before they actually made a change to bring in a quarterback coach? All those things were in play. They were able to practice that and put it under the stress of a game against North Carolina State. So I do think it's very important. I think Connor Riley learned a lot up there. He was very successful. He now knows even more how to get better in his play calling roles. Avery Johnson, we see what he can do as a quarterback. Hey, we're excited about what he can do, right? And what he did in the bowl game, leading the team, not turning into football, you can be so excited, and you saw what he did throughout the year. But do you realize against North Carolina State, Cole, he didn't complete 50% of his passes. Yeah, he had some throws that bounced in just before the receiver because he's a little off balance. That isn't going to happen anymore, okay? This guy's a high-level passer. You got to go out there in the field. I played quarterback. You probably wonder, can I really remember that, Cole? I do when I played quarterback. It's just getting that experience and playing in that game from start to finish. I know he had the big game against Tech, and I know he played other times, but I'm telling you, it's completely different when for the week before the game, you walk around campus and everybody knows you're the quarterback. You walk in the locker room and every coach and player looks at you like you touch the ball on every play. How's this going to go down? For him to have that experience and then go out in the field and apply what he did so many things well. But if you and I had a chance to break down the video, I could show you 5-6 more plays where he's going to kill it in 2024 because of the experience that he had in that bowl game. So you're right. The game had a dual purpose. Most importantly, they won. And whenever you win a bowl game, guess what? Everyone walks around the weight room with a little more excitement. There's not a drudgery about football and the mentality. So winning bowl games are big. This was even more important. It was kind of double the normal amount because the Iowa State loss and the fact we introduced these new players into the game.
Well, you bring up Avery Johnson, Stan, which is a great transition for us as we head into the top storylines in the 2024 season, which are brought to you by Elanco Premier Home Improvement Company, based out of the KC area, owned by K-Staters. And one of those top stories heading into the season is Avery Johnson at quarterback. The hype machine is rolling. New York Post, I think it was yesterday, actually predicted him to win the Heisman this year. What stood out to you about what you saw from Avery Johnson, both on and maybe off the field last season and to date? And do you worry at all that we're putting so much pressure on a guy who's just going to be a true sophomore?
Let's start backwards, okay, because it's easy to talk about the positives, but I do think it's too much. I think you've got to let these players grow. An example that a lot of people don't want to talk about, the Will Howard growth pattern or era, right? I mean, because Avery's potential and speed and excitement, a Kansas kid. But the fact is, think about Will Howard when he started compared to Will Howard's like the fourth or fifth highest rated guy in the Heisman Trophy Vegas odds right now as well at Ohio State. Look how much he changed over time. So I think we do need to be very patient. Avery Johnson is a superstar from mentality to speed to throwing ability, physicality, everything else. He can do it all, but we got to be patient with him. Don't just anoint him a superstar right along with his ups and downs. He's never had to come to the sideline yet after throwing an interception. Let me tell you, that's another growth pattern, okay? Because when you throw an interception, you've been taught to value the football. And in 2024, it is a giant statistic, right? If I go, during COVID, I went back and watched old games of the old days. They used to turn over the ball like 5 times per game. One team would turn it over 3, the other team would turn it over 2, and they wouldn't care because they punted so much, right? Now you can't turn it over. What happens when Avery throws an interception? He makes a mistake, not a receiver's mistake, and he has to walk over the sideline. How do you revamp? How do you reload and go, I don't care about that, or learn from it? So I do think we need to be patient with them. I would hope the K-State fans are excited and talk to each other, but don't project that it's going to be easy to go win the Big 12 or a national championship or a Heisman. That's not how it works, okay? So that would be point number one. But I am excited about him because I do believe he's a passing quarterback. And my excitement, Cole, is more about the whole year than that last game because fortunately the access I get to K-State football allowed me to monitor him and know a lot about him throughout the whole season. And his humbleness, like Patrick Mahomes, okay, I shouldn't do that, right? I just compared. But remember when Patrick Mahomes came in and didn't put up a stir when Alex Smith was a starting quarterback for the Chiefs? He didn't knock on anybody's door or make any comments to the press that, I'm going to be the greatest quarterback in history. Why am I not starting? No, he took it all in and he wanted to learn. Alex Smith, you know about NFL quarterbacking. Teach me everything you can, and I'll take that advice and advance it even further with my abilities. Well, guess what? That's what Avery Johnson did last year. There was no battle with Will Howard. They became best buds, and they tried to make each other better, which is an amazing thing about the quarterback room at K-State. Chris Kleiman's ability to produce NFL quarterbacks all the way back to his North Dakota State days, multiple guys, 3 from North Dakota State are in the pros right now, and then you got Skylar Thompson from K-State. His ability to handle their mentality, their selfishness oftentimes, quarterback, their type A personalities, and make them come together. Colin Klein did a great job of that as well. Avery, I know how Avery handled himself the whole time behind the scenes. He was smart. He is studying. He gets a game. He's humble. He's learning. And he's trying to get better to help what? K-State win. Those are the aspects that take you to the next level. But I do want to point out his speed's awesome, but his passing ability is where he's going to win games. He is a very good throwing quarterback. He has a very good understanding of defenses, and credit Will Howard some for helping him, teach him about how to be a college quarterback. So I'm very high on him, but I do want to be patient. I mean, if he's only a great quarterback and not a Heisman Trophy candidate this year, I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to look at what the K-State record is. Does he make winning plays in those close games? Okay, if he goes 5-0 in games decided by 8 points or less this year, we're going to have a great year. And guess what? He'll get better even the next year. So let's give him some time to grow, because the growth pattern isn't just boom to the top. It's continuing to go like this. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Don't you think he's better today than he was 3 years ago?
Absolutely.
He's the best quarterback around. He's won Super Bowls already, and he's still trying to improve. I hope we just give him a little bit of patience, and he'll do some great things for K-State, but mostly what he needs to focus in on is not individual accomplishments, winning games. And I think that's his mentality. It's been that way from day one. I credit his parents, the coaching staff, everybody. Good head on his shoulders is a great place to start with Avery Johnson.
Great stuff there from Stan. And a reminder, go check out Elanco for your home improvement needs. Remain locally owned since they started in 1986. And the best part, they're owned and operated by great K-Staters. They specialize in premium window replacements, bathroom remodels, siding, and cover Missouri, Northeast Kansas, and the surrounding KC metro area. If you're thinking of a home improvement project, think of Elanco. Go to elancohome.com and check out all the services they offer. You can also give Sam, a K-Stater, a call at 913-961-2165. Stan, let's stay on the topic of offense. Chris Kleiman, we talked about it already, named Connor Riley the offensive coordinator. But he also brought in a guy that I know you're familiar with in Matt Wells to coach the quarterbacks and be the co-offensive coordinators. And you've seen Wells as a head coach in the Big 12 during his time at Texas Tech and before that at Utah State. Just how valuable is it to bring a guy with his experience into the program as an assistant coach and to work with a guy like Avery Johnson?
I think it's very valuable. K-State's decisions by Chris Kleiman are just a home run. And it was not an easy thing to do because Colin Klein is a K-Stater. He works well with Chris Kleiman. He has an uncanny ability to teach everybody around him to do the right thing. So why did the quarterbacks? Think about Adrian Martinez. He was in the room, and he was the UFL Player of the Year. He was there with Will Howard. We had all kinds of chances for these quarterbacks to be pushing against each other, pulling the team apart, and it isn't happening. It's not an accident. I think it's important that a quarterback is taught by someone who really understands the intricate things that go on with the quarterback's mind, because there's a fine balance between teaching them and pushing them like they're any player and also understanding that they got to have a level of confidence. It may make quarterbacks sound soft, but there's the right way to rip into them, and there's a right way to give them confidence, and Colin Klein and Chris Kleiman are unbelievably good at that. So when you lose Colin Klein, you say, well, what are you going to do now? Well, Connor Riley's going to be a play caller. You got an offensive line coach as a play caller. That doesn't always fit with how a lot of teams do it. Is he going to stay the offensive line coach, or is he going to move to another position? Well, they just hit a home run because Matt Wells could replicate the same type of things that Colin Klein did, because Matt Wells has not only been a head coach, that's awesome to help Chris Kleiman, right, to understand, but he was a unique and excellent offensive coordinator. He was a great quarterback. So you got the same situation. You got a quarterback teaching a quarterback who understands the game from all levels, from being on the field and your elbow gets hit. It's crazy. Your elbow gets hit. It's numb, and they want to call a pass play. And everyone acts like it's just easy out there. You know, he played quarterback. He was an offensive coordinator at Utah State, then head coach at Utah State, and on to Texas Tech, and yet he's humble. He could have come in and said, man, I'm a college coach. I'm just sitting here for a year, kind of Nick Saban in it, right? Give me a year back in the game, and then I'll be a head coach somewhere. That is not Matt Wells. Matt Wells walks in so humble, so appreciative. He didn't want to get back into coaching unless he had the right fit. And there was almost no chance when he talked to his wife that he was going to find the right fit, but K-State is the right fit. He loves it, and he's humble enough to work with Connor Riley. Now, Connor Riley's an offensive line coach. I'm so glad he's staying at his excellence and making that offensive line go. We do not want to lose one of the best offensive line coaches in the country to a promotion. So Connor Riley's going to continue to do that. But he's going to go up to the booth, and Connor Riley is an intellect. He understands the game, not from just let's smash our heads together and be tough and yell at each other down in the offensive line and defensive line. He is a guy who can step back and understand the game, and he's also humble enough to ask Matt Wells little hints, like what does if I ask Avery what his favorite play is, he may tell me, but you know what a good quarterback and coach does, Cole? He answers the question differently than the player, because sometimes the player doesn't know what they're best at. And he'll say, here's his favorite route. It's 3rd and 7, and we got to make a play. What should we call? The Colin Kleins, the Matt Wells, or the Connor Rileys of the world, How about Andy Reid? He's an offensive line guy, right? Who's doing it for the Chiefs? The best offensive coordinator in the world came from the offensive line. Connor Riley could be that. But the little hints of saying, let's run that corner route. Let's run this play right here on 3rd and 7 at a critical point. That's where he'll play the best and feel the most comfortable. That communication has got to be excellent. That reading past what the player even says to really know where they excel under pressure is what you need to do. And I think getting Matt Wells to step in with Connor Riley is such a home run by Chris Kleiman. I mean, it is one of the greatest moves he's made as a K-State coach to sort this all out. And today I'm so excited to say every one of those offensive linemen that were recruited by Connor Riley, and he said, I want to put my life on the line for you boys. He's still coaching that. He's still living up to that commitment. We get to keep the best offensive line coach around working his magic, and yet he's good enough to call plays, go up to the booth. And now Matt Wells will be down there right with Avery. Avery comes off and throws that first interception, hopefully in game 8, not in game 3. Whenever it happens, guess what? He'll walk over to Matt Wells, and Matt will have the perfect discussion with him. Will he rip into him about making a bad decision, being off balance, we told you not to, or will he give him a hug and say, that happens, I've been there? I don't know what he's going to say, but Matt Wells will say the right thing. Chris Kleiman will do the right thing. We are ready to roll. And with Colin Klein, the excellence that he has, and the fact that he left K-State, that's not a dead cinch that was going to happen, Cole. There's a big chance. Odds, if Vegas were putting odds, they'd say, K-State's offense next year is going to have a little step back in its coordination of its offense with a guy like Colin Klein leaving. And I don't think we're there at all, because we put together this puzzle perfectly.
I completely agree, and I cannot wait to see the way it unfolds in 2024. We're going to throw to a quick break, but before we do, we got to tell you, as always, about our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Go over to homefieldapparel.com. Get stocked up with the 50-plus K-State items they have on their website. I've got several K-State hats, several K-State shirts, and some of the most comfortable, sleek hoodies with retro logos over at homefieldapparel.com. And the best part is you can score 15% off with discount code 3MAW24. So enter discount code 3MAW24 when you check out, and you'll get 15% off your entire order. Go check out Home Field. Great stuff over there and great K-State items on their website at homefieldapparel.com.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Stan, I got one more on the offense, and I'm always guilty of doing this. I start with the offense on every show we do. We don't get enough talk on the defense, so we will get to Joe Klanderman and the defensive unit as well. But on the offensive side of the ball for a few more minutes, K-State averaged the 11th highest points per drive in the country in 2023, 3.03 points per drive. It was top 5 over the last 17 years in terms of points per drive that K-State's done. So they were successful on the offensive side of the football. You already mentioned it. They're replacing their offensive coordinator in Colin Klein. He's gone. Replacing one of the best offensive linemen in school history, an All-American Cooper Beebe, as well as a guy who started 30-plus games in KT Leviston, who was also drafted, plus 2 veteran starters in Hayden Gillum at center and Christian Duffy, an offensive tackle. But there's seemingly more skill talent than we've maybe seen on offense heading into this season, with DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards transferring in the backfield, Keegan Johnson, Jace Brown out at wide receiver, and others. Garrett Oakley at tight end. I should have mentioned they obviously lost a second-round pick in Ben Sennett, who produced the best tight end season from a tight end in Kansas State football history. But saying all of that, how do you evaluate this offense heading into this season?
Well, I think that everyone needs to be a little bit patient, because that goes along with our discussion, if you were listening earlier, about Avery. Just don't advance him to third base like Bobby Witt Jr. Let him hit some singles and so forth. And I think that's what we need to do with the offense. There is no reason why this offense can't hit at a super high level and be even better than last year's offense. But we got to respect that last year's offense was good. And Will Howard understood the game at a high calculus level and was able to accurately throw the football. And DJ Giddens had a great year. So that offensive line, obviously all those guys who came back last year, returning starters, in Ben Sennett's year, let's don't disrespect what we did last year. But the potential is there if they grow together to go as far or farther. I think the offensive line has all kinds of depth. The recruiting's been incredible. The guys that are getting a chance to play have started some, or are right there and have been K-State Wildcats a long time. And you get one transfer in at left tackle that looks like he's ready to roll and start as well. So I think the offensive line, again, Connor Riley has developed these guys. He's ready to move the next group up. They got to prove it out in the field. Just think about game number 2 against Tulane and the heat down there, what that's going to be like. Let's see what that offensive line is like. They need to grow tremendously in the first couple of weeks of the season, but they should be able to do that. The tight end talent there's depth and there's superstar talent available in there. They're a little bit young, but they're not brand new. They're not true freshmen. Edwards coming in, the spark that he can give you. He played in college football last year for Colorado. He's ready. But the guy you got to look at, the one that I believe in and is probably the most underrated player in all of college football, DJ Giddens. The guy wants no publicity, came from Junction City, went over and played. Talk about Avery Johnson all you want is what he thinks. Just let me play. And that guy is hard to tackle. He's physical. He understands blocking schemes. He gets to the right point. He's decisive. I don't like guys that dance around. It never works in big-time football. There's no dancing. He makes his choice. He reads his blocks, and he gets up field, and he's hard to tackle. His pass-catching ability, unbelievable. I mean, Deuce Vaughn was great. He could go in the slot and run routes as well as the wide receivers and make good catches. And sometimes that made you overlook what DJ Giddens does. Have you ever watched him in a game? He never draws a pass, ever. I mean, no matter if you throw it on his back hit, you can throw it out in front of him where he has to reach out. He runs around and just snags the ball like it's no big deal and continues to run. And he's just fast enough to outrun whoever's chasing him. I am just amazed at how good a football player he has turned into because you're going to hear about some great running backs in the Big 12, but you better have DJ Giddens in that list. He is the guy I think they lean on. I'm not talking about we're going to be a running team and stay away from the pass. I'm not talking about that. He can be Deuce Vaughn catching passes, and he can run with physicality. And so I just think that's where you start. As much as Avery Johnson, because you always got to talk about your quarterback and the great things he can do, I think DJ Giddens is the guy the country is going to be completely surprised about. They're going, I know K-State was expected to be good. They're picked second in the preseason poll in the Big 12, but I didn't realize this Giddens was that great. And he is putting together an NFL player look. He plays like an NFL star.
Yeah, I mean, over 1,700 yards in 2 seasons. I think he's averaging, 5.8 yards per carry so far in his career. And you mentioned it on the pass-catching ability because I was in TCU in 2022 down in Fort Worth, and I did not know DJ Giddens could catch the football he did. And I remember a play where I don't know if it was a wheel route, but they threw it to DJ Giddens downfield, and he made a really nice grab. And I was like, I didn't know DJ Giddens had that in him. And then last year, I think it was the UCF game, a couple different catches he made. One was behind him. He had the ability to turn around, grab it, and then make a guy miss and get upfield. I was blown away with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And then I think about Dylan Edwards as a pass catcher too. I mean, they got kind of a two-headed monster where they could split back set and motion either one of those guys out of the backfield, and you don't know who they're going to go to via the pass. I mean, I completely echo everything you said about DJ Giddens. And Stan, I mean, I want to get your thoughts on this because you brought it up. I just love how humble he is. Doesn't celebrate, scores a touchdown, hands the ball to the official, doesn't say a word. I love that aspect of him. It's so unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Period. But I'll tell you why it's important for this year's team. Look at the hype machine. 12-team college playoff, right? You know how many teams are counting on being in that college football playoff if you listen to their fandom and the experts talking about them? It's probably about 40. 40 of them probably are pretty sure that either because of last year what they did or what they traditionally do or where they're going to play this year, they're going to be in it. I mean, Arizona, we play game 3. They're a conference opponent, but in a non-conference game. This stuff gets complicated. I know K-State fans know about this, but Arizona's quarterback is one of the guys who's fighting for a Heisman. They beat Oklahoma in the bowl game. So Arizona, if we went down there, we're previewing them, they probably think, why can't we be in the 12-team playoff? And Oklahoma State, the way they finished the year and the way that they play. Utah, I mean, even in our conference, we know Missouri's thinking about it. And if we were doing a discussion about KU, they think they're going to be in this. So the point is, being humble is so critical. We started that a little bit. I think that's important for all the K-State fans to have that excitement boosting out and the energy level, but apply it to the tailgating and the game day atmosphere. Make sure we win the games at home. We only have 6 games at home this year. Make sure we win all those games. Be the fans that make a difference in these close games. But for the hype machine, you cannot let that infect the locker room. Okay, the walls between the outside Twitter world and the podcast and the YouTube videos and the things you and I are doing right now, they are going to be seen by these players, but they can't seep into the locker room. That's fighting it, right? They carry that disease into the locker room, probably with their phone, even watching some of it while they're in the locker room. But Chris Kleiman and the coaching staff have got to say, build the wall around this facility, look inwardly, and get to work, okay? And they've done that so well the last 2 seasons. K-State's done it almost flawlessly, but this year's going to be harder to do. The hype's there. The 12-team playoff is now a part of the new Big 12 with no Oklahoma and Texas. Why aren't we going to win the Big 12? Well, it's probably 4 teams, 5 teams right now think they're going to win the Big 12. What does DJ Giddens give you? Superstar player, leader on the team, and he lives it. When he walks around campus, he's not looking for any attention, okay? These guys are real human beings. When he's got a chance to go out around town, he is not looking for the hype, okay? He and Avery Johnson, everyone would run a run and get a selfie with him, right? DJ Giddens is going to go to work and teach every one of the K-State Wildcats that this is how you become great. This is how you play. And it's going to be so important because the hype machine that we are part of are going to tell them this is easy and you're going to be great. And what's going to be super is the guy who's as good as any player on the team, DJ Giddens. And I'll add Austin Moore in there, okay? Because the best recruit K-State had, got to mention defense here for a second. The best recruit K-State had is getting Austin Moore to come back. Austin Moore's a grown-up, but a humble guy. So Austin walking around and DJ Giddens especially walking around is no fake. These guys look like, oh, this is how you act. Well, I read on Twitter that I'm supposed to be cocky and we're going to win every game and we're going to go 12-0 and we're fake. And DJ Giddens is going to go, I don't care about that. What the coach tell? He said run. Okay, we're going to run, lift, play. I just think he's an amazing guy who will lead by example, not by voice. And this team needs that example because we can hype and have some fun. And Avery's hair or whatever, it's hard for him to not be a star, right? And it's okay. He's the quarterback. But DJ, Austin Moore, those guys walking around and just saying, I don't care what anybody says on the outside, man. Let's get to work. That's going to help K-State be the best it can be this year.
Yeah, we had DJ on the show after his monster UCF game last year in Manhattan. He didn't want to talk about himself. It was hard to pull answers from him because he just, he's not he's not a big talker and he's so humble and has the humility about him. Real quick on the wide receiver group, Stan, Keegan Johnson battled injuries last year, but we continue to hear going into last season and now going into this season that, this is a guy that's really talented if he can stay healthy. Jace Brown produced one of the best true freshman seasons in school history as he came on about midway through the season. There's some other guys. Jaden Jackson's back. Trey Spivey, an up-and-comer with size at wide receiver, and I know I'm missing a couple of names probably, but what do you make of the wide receiver room?
I think they're very good, and they have athletic ability. What K-State really built themselves on at the wide receiver position, if you go back over the Chris Kleiman years, is they've had the most success with guys doing what they're supposed to do. Phillip Brooks, guys like that, just Cade Warner, my son Landry Weber. They didn't miss assignments, man. They didn't miss assignments, and they didn't miss balls thrown to them, and they blocked like a mother. And you say, no. That's what made the offense go, was all those things. But the explosiveness to get downfield and make people pay, it was hit or miss. So they were a very reliable football team. No mistakes, no stupid penalties, no drop passes, and it worked fine. This group here has the potential to do a lot of those things. If they'll stick their nose in there and block and make that difference, that's probably the question. Are they really physically, mentally going to say, I'm going to make that key block to make a DJ Giddens 5-yard run, a 20-yard run, or even think about Edwards more. Think about it. If we give him a ball in the situation and he bursts through the line and he gets into that linebacker safety area, he could get tackled for 5 or 6 yards if there's 2 guys around him and it's play over. If a block's made by a wide receiver on a safety at the right time, he could go 80 yards. I mean, DJ could do it too, but Edwards is even more of an explosive guy, a variable at that linebacker safety area. Does that make sense? We got to make those blocks. But otherwise, it's running routes, catching the ball, a good mentality. The diva wide receiver is kind of the thing, right? The NFL type of wide receiver that you go out and you're a star and you gripe if you don't get the ball. I don't think that works well with what K-State wants to do. I don't think we have the downside on any of these guys, and the upside's pretty high. If they'll block, their capability of going downfield and making bigger plays is the best we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years under Chris Kleiman. This group can take it and do all the fundamental things that you saw from McCade Warner and then take it with a little more speed and athleticism. I really am excited about these guys. And then we see the tight end, Ben Sinnott, playing the tight end position, kind of a quasi-wide receiver. Reminds you a lot of the Kansas City Chiefs. We always have them in our mind around here, right? Because we like football, we see the NFL, but you can see Travis Kelce. K-State's got tight ends who've come to the Wildcat land, the recruits. We've got 3 or 4 guys who are going to be really good. So when we can attack with tight end play and get matchups there, the wide receivers can get further downfield. I'm very excited about it. And you mentioned something I want to follow up on. Just think about if you have Edwards and Giddens in the backfield. You're in shotgun, normal position. You got a tight end lined up out there as well, and the ball snapped. Can you imagine when you run your receivers to the deeper parts of the field, you get your tight end wherever you want them, in the middle of the field or in the mid-range, and now you swing these 2 running backs out. Just simply swing them out to where they're on the run when they hit the line of scrimmage or 5 yards from the field. Now think about this, Cole. What are you going to do on defense? Because you know what the last factor of this is? Avery Johnson scrambling right up the middle. That's when he's going to make his yardage. And the stress the linebackers are going to be put under. How about the pass rushers? Do you tell the pass rushers to try to sack the quarterback? Or do you tell them, I don't want any sacks this game. Just stand near the line of scrimmage and don't let Avery run. Well, how valuable is that going to be to our passing game? So when you think about the speed and the catchability, running backs in college aren't supposed to be reliable receivers and weapons. K-State's going to have 2 of them in the backfield. Avery's running game is going to kill them by just running a normal pass play, and if the linebackers overreact and go out and try to stop those backs and the safeties are deep and the corners are deep, Avery's going to just run right up the middle, and he may go 80 yards.
Yeah.
So that's where Avery's running should be. It doesn't have to be quarterback run, doesn't have to be option. It's getting this team to do what it needs to do. I'm telling you what's so exciting is the weapons. Because Giddens can catch the ball and Edwards can catch the ball, you're going to swing those guys out. Because our tight ends are really good, they're going to be able to catch the ball. And now suddenly you've made this team play 53.5 yards wide defense and probably about 40 yards in length defense. They don't have enough players. Cole, they don't have many players. 11 doesn't cover that area. So what's K-State's strength? An old coach told me, very simple. In football, you're only as good as your weakest link. So where's the weakness? That's K-State football. Don't tell me about Avery Johnson winning the Heisman. Don't tell me about DJ Giddens winning the Running Back of the Year award. Talk about K-State winning games. These 11 players that they're going to have and what they can do on offense is going to stress the defense so much. It's going to be incredible.
I mean, you talked about it. I mean, I think about a DN trying to read a read option player, his own read with DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards, and Avery Johnson in the backfield. Do you sucker down? Do you bunch down and go after the Giddens going up the middle with the Thunder? Or do you get Edwards and Avery on the edge, on the perimeter? I mean, it will put a ton of pressure and stress on those outside linebackers. K-State's going to have the potential to get guys in a lot of mismatches because of the talent they have, which is why I think adding Edwards just to give you that third option there in the backfield between Avery, Giddens, and him is so significant for the firepower of this offense. So, Stan, let's transition to the defense, as we promised. And according to Bill Connolly of ESPN, K-State returns 79% of their defensive production this year. That's the 12th highest mark in the country. And using Brian Freemau's points per drive numbers, which go back to 2007, and I went through K-State defenses over those 17 seasons, defensive coordinator Joe Klanderman and his unit have produced 2 of the top 4 seasons from a points per drive standpoint during that time. Only the 2012 and 13 defenses ranked better in points per drive allowed. How do you evaluate the job Klanderman's done in his time in Manhattan and look ahead to the 2024 season? How do you evaluate this defense?
Well, I give Klanderman an A+. He's almost a little bit like DJ Giddens of the coaching world. Doesn't care if he gets any credit. Don't hear him needing to have his name hyped out there, but never jealous about anything. Because, you know, Colin Klein is a K-State superstar, almost won the Heisman, won the Big 12 in 2012, comes back as a larger-than-life guy and a legitimate coach. He didn't want to talk about his greatness, but the go, man, we got a great offensive coordinator in Colin Klein, and he's a superstar K-State guy, K-State grad. Why wouldn't you throw him love? Okay? Joe Klanderman doing just as good a job on the defensive side. He didn't get upset that everyone's talking about Colin Klein. He's an amazing human being. For them to go from the four-man front in Big 12 competition and say a few years ago, let's give it a shot. We're going to go to the three-man front, put more safeties on the field, and find a way to figure out. They didn't go to Iowa State, who really invented it, and Iowa State didn't give them all the hints, okay? Iowa State had no desire to let K-State know how to run the 3-3-5. They had to figure it out on their own, and what's amazing is they did it, and they've learned. They have gone from basic math 3-3-5 now to calculus level. The players understand it. They understand every action point, and I say they because I cannot ever say Joe Klanderman without all the defensive staff. Those guys have been very steady with Kleiman the whole time, and I cannot leave out Chris Kleiman because he's a defensive guru and a safeties expert. So having more safeties needed on the field, just think about the turnover we've had at safety at K-State. We've had transfers come in and go, oh, gosh, we got 2 new safeties out of 3, or 3 starting this year. What's going to happen? And what's it turned out to be? Good every time. So Klanderman, safety coach, coordinator, calling the plays, knowing how to run this 3-3-5 is incredible. And then his staff, Chris Kleiman especially, helping out. They deserve tons of credit. And they know how to do the four-man front. So what's the big thing going on in sports right now in football? People have been playing the 3-3-5 look enough that now they're trying to mix in some four-man front stuff on certain downs to get the offense off balance. Because an offense can always perform when they play against the same thing all the time. Okay? When I played, we played against a 50 defense or a 3-4 all the time. That was basic football. So we knew when we played every game, every practice, if we seen a 3-man front, they called it a 5-man front maybe then, but basically a 3-4, a traditional 3-4 defense, we felt like glove on hand perfectly, right? A team would play us with a 4-man front and not have a nose guard over the center, and we all were freaking out because mentally we had no reps. It was like using your offhand. For me, my left hand. If you made me eat with my left hand, I'd probably be 110 pounds. I mean, my left hand seems so uncoordinated compared to my right hand. Well, guess what? Everyone's getting used to playing against the odd man front right now. So K-State's ability to now push this and then morph into a 4-man front without the players even getting mixed up at all. The coaches know exactly what they're doing. So they have the ability to go to even fronts, get different pass rush combinations on the field, play down and distance, have different blitzes. The adaptability you're going to see, because now they know this 3-3-5 like the back of their hand. If you want to have a formation or a grouping of players come out against them this year, they'll know exactly who they want on the field and why, and the players will know where the pressure points are in the 3-3-5. So next thing they need to do is, once in a while, keep you off balance and say, hey, we want to go to an even front as well. I'm very excited about what they're doing. Joe Klanderman's done an amazing job. I'm glad you mentioned him. The defensive staff has been very good. And, you know, when you say, I like your stat when you say points per possession, because we have a lot more possessions at certain times in history. They used to punt 1 million times, okay? So they had more possessions. We keep the ball more, but we snap the ball much faster now.
Yep.
So we'll see games where you have a lot more possessions. Well, guess what? You cut through all that, keeping teams about 20 points a game, forget points per possession, even full game stats. He's put together 2 unbelievable seasons for the Wildcats. It's been a long time since they've held opponents to basically 20 points in 2 straight years. So I think the defense is the lead card. As crazy as it seems, I don't know how long you and I have been on the air here. We didn't start with the defense, but I think early in the season, my theme will be the defense will lead the way, and let's let the offense grow and learn and have some growing pains. If it's offensive line missing a block once in a while, not being as physical as you want, interception you wouldn't expect, don't anoint the offense to be elite right away. Let them grow. I'm telling you what, that stat you talked about is what I believe in. The defenders that are coming back are ready to play and play at a high level, and the defense has advanced itself in its mentality. And again, I'll start with Austin Moore, but I like the depth of our defense. I like how the guys we have back. We got some lockdown cornerbacks. It's in modern football, it's a great place to start. What are the Chiefs great at last year? Locking down with 2 amazing cornerbacks. With the other 9 players get to play a different game because the corners are locked down, it's a whole And our cornerbacks are going to be great this year. And Austin Moore is going to align the guys in the right way, be able to call out formation, trick plays. He'll see them ahead of time. I'm really excited about what the defense can do, both on players, depth, guys returning, but also our coaching is off the charts on the defense.
Yeah, so thrilled to have Austin Moore back. We had heard that, there was a chance he was going to move on, Brendan Mott as well. And both of those guys decide that announce at the same time, actually, that they're coming back. Cody Stufflebean, another guy that we thought was going to likely move on, decides to come back, play another season of college football. That's valuable experience you get back on the defensive side. And you mentioned the secondary, Stan, so I want to start there as well. I mean, they've got Siegel, who you were at Big 12 Media Days, I believe, in Vegas. Siegel was there, a guy that Chris Kleiman just lights up about when he talks about him. You got VJ Payne coming into his third year of significant playing time. He's got a lot of tools and athleticism to be a really good safety. Jordan Riley, they've had a ton of success with transfers in the secondary, as we know, and that's the next guy that they're highlighting from Ball State transfer at safety. And then you've got Garber, Parrish, and other guys behind at corner. A lot of depth there as well. Just how excited are you for that secondary?
Very much. Jack Fabris is a coach's son. Got a little action last year. He is a feisty young guy, really understands football to a high level, which is what our safeties need to do. Our safety linebacker core have to play, because we're in 3-3-5, you really don't play with less than 7 players up. It's just which guy's coming. And they got to know in coordination, depending on where the play goes, who's going to do it, what the defensive call is. But Jacob Parrish is the guy I start with. Just an amazing cornerback. Doesn't get talked about a lot, but he's a lockdown guy and could be a superstar. If he continues his growth, he could be amazing. First team all Big 12. Garber, how about the humbleness of being around K-State a long time, being a receiver, and now being a cornerback? But he is probably the fastest player on K-State's team. So this is a good place to start at cornerback. If you can learn the intricacies of how to play the position, the catch-up speed, if you're a little bit off, to outrun someone when you're running from that 20-yard point to that 50-yard point, to outrun them by 2 or 3 yards is an interception or a knockdown pass, but it's definitely not a touchdown. So I think Keenan really now is truly a defensive player. He plays with physicality enough. That's hard for a wide receiver to understand the physicality, because where do teams throw the ball now? They throw the ball down the line. They make cornerbacks play like linebackers. They block that play all the time. It's a core play in all of football. And so I think Garber is ready to go and has unbelievable speed. Jacob Parrish is a superstar. And so the guys up front are basically returning and get things done. So I'm very excited. They're going to have a couple of guys step up, fill in, because you're going to play with, 16, 17 guys, really significant downs for your defense all year long. Could be as many as 20 based upon packages, injuries, and those kind of things. I think K-State has the depth. There's going to be a few guys that really need to step up and show they can do it. But the integration into our system on the defensive side by Joe Klanderman and Coach Kleiman has been amazing. Like I said, think about this safety turnover over the last 3 or 4 years. And you don't notice it in the games. Even in week 1 or 2, you don't see giant mistakes being made. So I'm excited about the guys that are coming back. But again, I'll point out, having cornerbacks who can lock down on the outside means you can play more man-to-man. And the more man-to-man you can play, if you just look at analytics, the more man-to-man you can play and not get burned by being in the man-to-man advances your team tremendously, because it gives you an extra guy to blitz. You can play angles. You can do so much with the guys that are remaining. The other 9 players will win the battle if the cornerbacks don't let those guys on the outside get open and hurt you. And it just drives the offensive coaches crazy, because they do not want to see man-to-man and all the combinations of blitzes and stunts that you can bring, because the answer is, let's make them pay. Let's beat them down the field. Let's run a post pattern and get a 25-yard gain or maybe a touchdown. If they don't get that, it just totally changes the defense odds. And I think K-State's going to do that. They were doing that already last year. It's an understated thing, obviously, that they were playing as much man-to-man as they were, because those guys were so good. But going into this year, they can wave to the opponent and just go, we'll tell you what the defense is. We're playing man-to-man on the outside, okay? And the slot's going to be guarded by this guy. Now what are you going to do? And it's amazing, pretty cocky to do it, but K-State could do that. That's how well I think those corners can play.
It's actually, my son and I were rewatching the Big 12 Championship of 2022 the other day to try and get through the summer here. And I look out on the field and Jacob Parrish getting really his first significant snaps in that game as Echo Boydo goes down with an injury. Keenan Garber, that's the first game he appeared. I remember being in the stands and everybody around me was asking, who's number 35 out there? And I looked at the roster. I'm like, that's Keenan Garber. And half the people didn't even know he'd switched to corner yet before that game. And those two guys are getting significant snaps there on the big stage in the Big 12 championship. And now you look a couple of years later heading into the 24 season, and they're two potential lockdown corners that you have. Garber, another guy that came back sixth year. Feels like he's been around forever because he was in Chris Kleiman's first recruiting class. Right. Credit to those guys for sticking around. Keenan Garber could have transferred after years 2 or 3 when he wasn't getting on the field at receiver. And I think that's a real testament to this program. There's so many of these guys, they don't just give in. They don't hit the portal. They stick around and give it a go to keep playing and give it a try. I mean, I just think that's a huge testament to Kleiman. So.
Well, it is, and all the coaching staff, Kleiman especially, but it also is that he is he's recruiting the type of players and teaching the players to grow up and be the kind of guys that help create the glue to keep guys. The DJ Giddens of the world, I'm just telling you, the Austin Moores of the world. We talked about that receiving corps. Most of Kleiman's years, I can talk about the guys that were there and playing, the Phillip Brooks of the world. They may not have excited the fans of what they could do blowing teams away, but reducing the number of kids that give up, reducing the number of players that transfer, all those things are happening with those quality kids. Usually the Kansas type of kid, right? The Cooper Beebes of the world, that offensive line, that mentality. That offensive linemen usually have a good room. They're usually guys who aren't worried about publicity and just get to work all over the country. But K-State's got like that offensive line mentality throughout its organization. And I mentioned it earlier. It is such a surprise to keep quarterbacks pulling in the same direction for each other and for the team. That rarely happens because they just say, I play or you play. And how am I going to help you win my job? We have been through a bunch of combinations with Skylar Thompson and Will Howard, Adrian Martinez and Will Howard and Avery Johnson. This is unbelievable what we're doing. This K-State way, this Chris Kleiman way of reducing the amount that people are looking outside. Remember I spoke earlier, build the walls around your program. That's what you got to do. We can have all the fun in the world. It's great that they're on social media and they get to hear us talking about how great we think they're going to be, how fun the tailgating is, how much we love going on the road and taking over other people's stadiums. That cannot be in the football player's mind. They got to come together and look inwardly and say, what can we do to help this team win? Don't listen to the hype. And all those things help us reduce the number of transfers and reduce the number of people who give up. Because you know what usually happens? The guys like Keenan Garber, before the transfer portal, 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, you know what happened? Guys like Keenan Garber would just fade into the woodwork. They just would not try at practice. They'd end up being a disappointment at wide receiver. Maybe they'd transfer, maybe they wouldn't. Doesn't matter. They wouldn't stick with it. He has a chance to play in the NFL. Keenan Garber, if he continues to grow as a defensive guy, might play in the NFL. When you looked earlier, he wasn't even able to get on the field as a wide receiver for K-State. Did he give up? Did he cause problems? No, he's hanging around for his 6th year. This kind of mentality is going to be so important when we advance forward into this new world, Cole. We're just getting to the beginning of the selfishness of the players. Are you going to be jealous of someone who has a money deal because these players are getting paid? Is all that going to infect your team? All these different things times about what? 5 or 10 now could infect a locker room. And K-State's not going to be able to just stay away from it completely. But I'm telling you what, they're going to have the least amount of this negativity, and it's going to make a difference in our record. We're going to win 8 games instead of 6. We're going to win 10 instead of 8, 12 instead of 10, and we're going to have people grow and develop. I love that Kleiman says we're a developmental program. Like, Dylan Edwards, transfer. Come on, we'll love you. But that doesn't mean we're not going to start putting you in a developmental program for you to be better. Adrian Martinez started 4 years in Nebraska. Okay? What did he have left to prove? You know what he found when he got to K-State? He became a developmental player. He learned from Colin Klein and Chris Kleiman and Will Howard how to be better. He would not be the guy he is in the pros right now with the UFL if he wouldn't have gone through the K-State experience. We brought him in, gave him love, but he's new, and we still said, no, you got to develop. You got to get better from the day you get here to the day you leave. You need to be a better person, a better teammate, and a better player. That mentality is so important of why K-State's always been successful, starting with Bill Snyder. But in this fight we're going to have the next 10 years, in this new Big 12 and this new transfer environment, the money paying to the players, all of that, this is going to work so well to have the program run the way we do it. And I credit all the players and the coaches for doing it.
Yep. So many 5th, 6th-year guys have stuck around the last couple of years at Kansas State. As you think about the offensive line last year, then Daniel Green, you got Austin Moore, Keenan Garber, Brendan Mott. I could keep going down the list. There's been a lot of guys that have hung around Manhattan and don't want to give up playing in the Wildcat uniform. Stan, go ahead.
Hey, cool. I wish I could hang around and still play. Okay.
Yeah. Would you have wanted to give it a year 5, year 6, Stan, if you had a chance?
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt. Because Cole, here's a little trivia for you. You're so young, you don't even realize this. Okay. When you played football for most of modern history, when freshmen were eligible, there was a time freshmen couldn't play. Okay. It's about the early to mid 70s. Let's just go back to simplicity. You had 5 years when you enrolled in college to play 4 seasons. That was the steadfast rule, no exceptions. So I went to K-State, and Darrell Ray Dickey was a starting quarterback. His dad was the head coach. I worked at quarterback, but the fact was, what good would it do for me to waste my time over there when I had a chance to play defense? So I played free safety my freshman year, started some games and everything else. So I went on the first trip to LSU on the first game, 1 of 2 freshmen. I played defense. But the next year we had the big redshirt experience, 1981, where a bunch of starters redshirted, and I redshirted with them. Fine. Okay, so I redshirted in 81. A little unique, but I did. In 82, we come back. But before I got out of the 82 spring, I blew out my knee. So then I'm out for the year. Then I come back, and I'm a starting quarterback basically for the next 2 years. Cole, I only got to play 3 years. Nowadays, they would have given me another year to play because of my injury. So, yeah, I'd go to bed a lot at night saying, I only played 3 out of 5. I want a chance to play 4 out of 5.
I never even knew that. I didn't know you transitioned from safety to quarterback.
Yeah, no, I started some at free safety my freshman year. When I got to camp, we used to do, I feel bad saying this, but we used to do 3-a-days at the beginning of the season, okay, in fall camp. So there was plenty of reps, right? But I would spend the first meetings and most of my meeting time with the offense during that time, and I would practice with the offense in the first practice and then practice with the defense in the second practice because the middle one's mostly special teams. So I truly split between quarterback and free safety. And then when it got real close to the first game, I was lucky enough to make the trip, and they said, just think about defense. So I went to LSU. I was a starting holder for a field goal. My first play ever was at LSU holding for a field goal. That was the first time I ever played on a college football field. Then I played free safety of the whole fourth quarter, and they said, forget practicing at quarterback. So once we had one game, I didn't waste any time at quarterback then at all during 1980, my first season. So I was a free safety, period, first year, redshirted because we all redshirted. I mean, almost every high-level scholarship player on K-State's football team redshirted in a big experiment in 1981. Then I went back to quarterback and got ready to play quarterback, but I blew out my knee in a spring game scrimmage the week before spring game. And back then, you were on crutches forever. Like I'm the best man on crutches. I can lift both my feet off the ground and I can go up steps with crutches. I was on it for like 8 or 9 months.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was really, there is a part of me, that you're so happy with the things you got a chance to do. I mean, who wouldn't, you wouldn't trade being a chance to be a starting quarterback for your school. I mean, no way. So I can't. And I was able to play free safety and play. But I tell you what, it does. If you want to get on the other side of things, it still is a bummer in my brain to go, I only had a chance to play 3 years. I redshirted and then I got hurt. A bad order to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I would.
I like the new rules, but once in a while I wake up and I think I could still do it. And then I look in the mirror, Cole, and people have to look at me now and go, there's no way you could do it.
Yeah. Well, Stan, as we put a bow on this, you've been more than generous with your time. I mean, how do you assess the schedule? Looking at Kansas State's schedule, I can't remember if I put you on the spot at Media Days last year. We had you on. If we made you give a prediction, I can't remember if you did or not. I don't know if you like to even do predictions preseason, but I mean, just at a high level, maybe evaluate the 12-game schedule, the new Big 12 that Kansas State's walking into.
The schedule is more like an NFL schedule than it normally is. You used to say you're going to play Texas and Oklahoma in a full round robin, and there's no way you're not considered an underdog in those games at this point in the season, right, before the year started. So you had two monster games that you really needed to play great in to win. And then you would look at the schedule, either non-con or some other teams that are poor, and we're going to win 4 games for sure. So we're going to have 2 real hard games. We're going to have 4 games we're going to win if we're half asleep. And then you get into that middle 6 where you say, what are you going to do? And you should win 4 out of those 6, or if you're better, 5. If you mess up, 3. This year's much more like that middle. Like the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, and this year they're favored to win the Super Bowl, and no one blinks an eye to think that they might be 12-5, 13-4. You know, in college, you'd go crazy if you lost that many games. Well, we're going to Tulane, and we're playing outside. So I respect the heck out of that game. The fact that we lost to Tulane earlier probably gives us more respect of what that team can do. But Cole, being outside, I mentioned I played that game at LSU in September outside, not in the Superdome, but outside, the humidity. That is going to be some home field advantage for Tulane, so you respect that game. Look how good Arizona is. They're coming in as a non-con game. And then after that, you know, which games are you going to say, oh, that's going to be a pretty easy game? And it's hard to see. Maybe you say Houston, but hey, it's on the road. Maybe you say it's Arizona State. But Cole, do you know any history about the kind of athletes that Arizona State has and has had, and the winning tradition that they could snap of fingers and get to? And then you got your games where, hey, you're home, but Oklahoma State, home against Kansas. Those are going to be wars. At BYU is going to be a heck of a game. And West Virginia is a very underrated team, and we play them on the road. So I think you're going to play a ton of close games. How are we going to come out? Cole, tell me what we're going to do in these 5 or 6 games decided by 8 points or less, or 7 points or less. That's going to define if we're Big 12 champs, or if we're sitting out going to a very good bowl game with a very good team, but missed out on the opportunity. I don't know. How are we going to play in those close games? How are we going to come together? We only have 6 home games, not 7. Our non-con's tough. But, man, what a chance this is. To not have Oklahoma and Texas on our schedule, to have a new Big 12, why aren't we a team that's going to be the best in the Big 12 the next 5 years? Why not us? I would put it into Utah, Oklahoma State, and K-State. Or I'll say, I don't mean that in order. K-State, Oklahoma State, Utah. I could go back and forth, okay? Those 3 teams are the most likely to be the best over the next 5 years. And it's right there before us this year. 12-team playoff is achievable. Winning the Big 12, or at least getting to the game, is achievable. But, man, do not get cocky. Fans, do not try to infect our players with cockiness. Infect us with enthusiasm. Can't wait to see what you guys do. Can't wait to see you play UT Martin. That's the mentality we need to have, because we need to start getting some momentum early, like going to BYU and winning that game. And the other thing is a big deal. I know you heard me say this before last year. You need to teach the other teams who the big dog is. And it's all, the deck's been reshuffled. You didn't have to go into the stadium against OU in Manhattan or in Oklahoma and know who the big dog was, Cole. You knew it. Every fan, every player looked at those OU helmets and go, Oklahoma's in town. That's not happening now in the Big 12. There's no Longhorn helmet. There's no Sooner helmet. There should be no intimidation. But guess what? 5 years from now, you and I are going to have this conversation, and we're going to talk about the bottom of the pack. They will have found their bottom. Okay? Yep. We're going to talk about the elite, and they will have found their position, and it'll be, how did that happen? Winning right now. Teaching UCF last year, you got an exciting offense, but we're going to kick your butt. Houston, oh, you're excited about being in a conference. We're going to shut you out. Okay? What are we going to do to these new teams like Arizona, Arizona State, BYU? Teach them right now that we're winning. Yeah. And that chance is here. It's critical to be great in 24, 25, 26. And it starts right now. Us, Oklahoma State, and Utah are the best teams in the Big 12 today. And I think we're going to be likely the best teams in the Big 12 over the next 5 or 6 years. Who's going to be the best of the group? It could be K-State. We got so many things going for us.
You talk about sending a message. You got the road game in Colorado, too, in Boulder, and the hype machine rolling around Dion, and a real opportunity there to go into Boulder and send a message early on that Kansas State is the program in the Big 12. And look, I think an interesting scheduling kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a quirk here, Stan, but you mentioned the Tulane game, and they bring in John Summerall as the head coach. So when Willie Fritz leaves, I'm excited, but then Willie Fritz comes to a Big 12 school at Houston. I have a lot of respect for Willie Fritz. I think we all do. So then you got him at Houston, and then I'm like, well, at least Tulane will be weakened. And then they go hire a guy in Summerall who won 12 and 11 each of the last 2 years at Troy, produced a 23-4 record. So that's not going to be easy.
And coached against K-State. That's the thing. Playing against us is a learning experience. And I was hoping the Tulane coach, no matter who it was, would go, gosh, I think I can watch tape and understand what K-State football is like. It's completely different when you're down on the sideline. And so Tulane, I know Willie Fritz really well. I broadcast his games when he was at Central Missouri. I know his brother, who's a coach at Blue Valley Northwestern High. I know him very well. So at the Big 12 meetings, I had long conversations with him. And he told me he was surprised at how much talent Houston has. Like, they're closer to being ready to roll than he thought they would be. We play them on the road, right? But the other thing I said, what about Tulane? I was hoping he'd tell me, oh, it's over. The good guys have passed on. We hit our peak. He goes, no. Tulane is very solid. He said good things about what he thinks they're going to be. And I think having Summerall there, he coached against K-State, will give them another slight advantage and the humidity. That said, get ready for another close game. Go party in New Orleans, pack the place, make it a K-State thing, but don't just expect to win. Expect to play our game. If we stay focused on ourselves and playing the best we can be, we could go undefeated. We could be 12-0 this year. But, you snap of fingers and look over somebody, you can be 8-4 so fast, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, Tulane, I think they've got a transfer quarterback from Oregon. I want to say he's a former 5-star recruit. I haven't dug in fully yet on Tulane, but they brought in some serious transfer portal talent and retained some guys. So that's going to be a hard game. And then you've only got 6 days after playing in that humidity to turn around and play Arizona on a scheduling quirk of a Friday night on National Fox. So a lot of opportunities. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Stan, it's always a lot of fun to talk to you. And talking to you makes it feel like football season is right around the corner. And it is. We've only got a week left in the month of July. And then, like I said earlier, it's the last month without football. And August 31st, K-State kicks it off in Manhattan against UT Martin. Stan Weber and Wyatt Thompson will be on the call. Stan heading into year 38. Can't wait to hear you, Stan. And hopefully we see the Cats in Arlington again at the Big 12 Championship.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, and tell the other guys that weren't able to make it today with us, tell them a big hello, and let's get ready for some football.
Yeah, I'm sorry they didn't make it, but I'm glad I got to hog the time with you and ask all the questions. Appreciate you, Stan, and appreciate all of you for listening to another 3 Mile Pod.